Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the Last Round Boxing Podcast. Thank you again for joining us. So just jumping straight into it, probably the biggest news, at least of the last couple days, at least in terms of eyeballs. You know, I'm sure when some listeners who are listening right now, when we say biggest news, who are a little bit more on the hardcore fan side, might not consider this big news, but in terms of at least eyeballs, it's popular. Jake Paul and Tank Davis is officially off. And this was, you just told me this, right, Mike? I mean, obviously there was innuendo and rumors because of Tank Davis's alleged, arrest again, or is it alleged arrest or was he arrested? I think he was arrested, involving alleged domestic situations again. So you just said this, right, Mike? Just like a minute or so before we came on air, within the last hour, it's official that Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, that was supposed to take place, I believe, in Atlanta, is off. Is that correct?
Yes, according to Ring Magazine, the fight will no longer go ahead on November 14th. Per Most Valuable Promotions, MVP is now targeting a new date and new opponent to fight on Netflix later this year. So it doesn't look like we'll be waiting too long.
Do we know? I know we talked about, as I mentioned right before we came on air, Francis Ngannou, the former UFC champion and, MMA fighter, acknowledged or said that he was contacted by MVP and Jake Paul's team to potentially step in for Gervonta Tank Davis. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I just watched the TMZ interview.
What do you think?
I thought his reaction was kind of strange, to say that he's with the PFL, has been struggling to get fights. That move from the UFC to PFL definitely hasn't worked out because he's only had one MMA fight and then made most of his money, obviously fighting Tyson Fury and AJ.
That's true. No, that is true. I mean, yes. In a way, isn't it kind of not surprising that's how he reacted? Because, even before he fought Tyson Fury and kind of came into the boxing world within the last year or so, he already made good money as an MMA fighter, as a UFC fighter. But obviously he made a lot more money when he crossed over into boxing. Do you think that, let me ask you this. Let me pose this scenario to you. If Ngannou had not yet fought Tyson Fury or AJ, because he fought both, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If he had not fought either of those fighters and had no boxing fight yet, not at least a big one like that, and just had UFC fights and got this offer from Jake Paul in this exact situation as a potential replacement opponent, do you think he would have taken it if he had not had the Tyson Fury AJ fight?
Yeah, because I think his paydays from the UFC were significantly smaller than I imagine the potential pot of money to face Jake Paul, and he probably would need it.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, comes down to essentially security, right? Financial security.
For us all. For us all.
I mean, yeah. But, if you don't want to, everybody takes that into account. It is a part of life. It is a part of life. Do we know any other names that have been potentially rumored or kind of thrown in the mix with any kind of, it doesn't even have to be valuable reporting, but anything just thrown out there?
So I just Googled it as you were talking. So potential next opponents and their odds to fight Jake Paul. a Tommy Fury rematch, 4-1. That's the favorite. Gilberto Ramirez, strangely, 5-1.
That's interesting.
Nate Diaz, 6-1. Jorge Masvidal, 8-1. Canelo Alvarez, 4-1.
Wow.
And then Anthony Joshua.
Who out of those names you just listed, who do you think? Let's just say just shot in the dark. Who would you think would have the best chance to land it?
Well, if you remember, Eddie Hearn was doing those interviews before they announced Gervonta Davis, kind of hinting at they would be interested in AJ fighting Jake Paul because they thought pretty much it's easy money. That fell through when the Davis fight kind of got confirmed and it kind of went away, and they're like, hey, you know what, like we're kind of not interested anymore because they probably thought, Davis is probably going to beat him, and then what's the point in AJ fighting him? I'm sure the pot of money is going to be significantly smaller. So they did talk about AJ potentially coming back and having a fight either in Africa or Monaco. And then in a recent interview, Eddie was saying that he doesn't think he's actually going to be back until January or February. He's already in camp. So depending on the pot of money, if Netflix decide to put up a silly amount and then let them split it with DAZN, because I know obviously AJ does have a contract with DAZN, so I'm sure they'd have to share it in some sort of way. That'll probably be the biggest hurdle. I could see it. Because if you were AJ, you're like, I'm a world champion, and Jake Paul's essentially a YouTuber, carefully selecting his fights. It could be an easy night's work. Look what he did to Francis Ngannou. He destroyed him in one round.
Do you really think so, though? Like, just last-minute opponent like that, you think he would do it?
I'm sure AJ's probably been stays in shape. I don't think he's going to be like a.
I don't doubt that. I'm talking about just like he is a superstar, like in terms of box office.
I mean, I can see where you're coming from. He has nothing to gain, but it should be maybe an easier fight than when he fought Ngannou, because Ngannou at least was an MMA world champion and had been in kickboxing and boxing beforehand, where Jake Paul's just been doing celebrity fights against people normally naturally smaller than them. Didn't really choose guys who had unbelievable striking in MMA. So I was kind of surprised when he fought Ngannou, because I've like, you got really nothing to gain here and everything to lose. Like when Fury fought him, right? He got dropped, and then people were like, you know what? I think Ngannou actually won that. So he didn't really gain anything out of that apart from probably a huge payday from Turki Al Sheikh. So AJ's probably got, how many fights left? 2 or 3?
Max.
Yeah. Say if he fights Jake Paul end of this year, beginning of next year. Tyson Fury, maybe Easter, and then again in summer, and then walks
twice.
Away. And then he's probably done in those 3 fights 100 to 150 million.
Yeah. Tyson Fury, they're going to try to squeeze out 3 if they split the first 2.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. If they split the first 2, then we'll get
I mean, I know we in past episodes here, when we've talked about fights, especially in the mainstream, casual boxing fans, we measure it a lot by, at least from our personal experiences, we measure it a lot by, okay, when casual fans or, people who don't follow boxing as closely as we do, obviously, when they ask us about fights or a fighter or an event coming up, then we know, like, okay, it's reaching the outside of the boxing bubble. We've had that in regards to Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, even though it was wasn't a real fight, but got a ton of attention. A lot of people asked. Jake Paul versus who was the other popular one he did?
Tommy Fury was popular in the UK. Chavez,
yeah. I mean, this is just my experience. You tell me if you've heard anything, but I didn't really have anybody ask me about Jake Paul versus Davis. And this was going on Netflix. And I haven't had I haven't had anybody ask me about it.
No, now that you bring it up, normally guys at work will hit me up because, I'm the boxing nerd, and then they'll be like, hey, what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? Do you think he stands a chance? And nobody. And I know you sent me something from Twitter about somebody posting, the lack of ticket sales like last week or something like that. So that doesn't fare well, right? When we're literally 2 weeks away from the fight actually being scheduled, or should have been scheduled.
Right. And it was supposed to happen in Atlanta, right? Like in Georgia, right?
Was it Atlanta or Florida?
I think it was Georgia. Yeah, I think it was Atlanta, Georgia. Unless they changed it.
Because
I'm pretty sure it was Atlanta.
They moved it, didn't they?
Oh, they did?
Wherever it was scheduled to be the first time, it got moved to
Miami.
I'll see if I can find it.
Because I think it was in Georgia. But
Kansas Center, Miami, Florida.
Okay, so they did move it. So I think the original plan was Georgia, or they had announced Georgia or Atlanta, and then they ended up changing it. So correction there. In regards to Davis, so was he... Maybe, I don't think he was arrested again.
It's a civil case.
It was a civil case, right? So there was a civil lawsuit that was filed by his ex-girlfriend, ex-partner, in regards to alleged battery, domestic situations like that. So there was that civil case that was filed against him.
Do you want to just explain the difference? I don't know, for people who may not know, I guess.
Well, so a civil case is mostly monetary. It's mostly money. So for our listeners who might be a little older, it's crazy to say that because I don't even think we're that old, but to a lot of people we are. So I know you weren't living in the United States at that time, but you remember O.J. Simpson in the 90s?
Yep.
So he had that criminal trial that spanned months, several months over time, right? Highly publicized. They accused him of murder and all that. Well, he was not guilty in a criminal trial, right? Where if he was found guilty, he would have served time. Many years time, possibly life. But subsequent to that, he was sued civilly by, I believe, his wife's Nicole Brown Simpson, who was killed. He was sued civilly, I believe, by her family. And he was found, I believe, liable in that civil suit, where where the civil court judge civil court judge here in the United States ruled that he had to pay millions of dollars in response to that judgment. So it's essentially the civil suit is, in a general sense, is a monetary case. So they're suing in regards to trying to get some money out of it. That's generally what's happening here. So as of right now, at least as of today, November 3rd, 2025, there is no criminal charges as of today against Gervonta Tank Davis. But there is this civil suit, which, I mean, let's be honest. The ex-girlfriend who filed this, or the ex-girlfriend, however you want to label her, this was probably planned to be timed to be filed around this time, right? I mean, I think her and her lawyers probably knew, like, hey, let's file it right before his next event, and it'll get a lot of publicity, and it'll probably affect his positioning in that event. Am I wrong?
Right. If they're going to make the biggest drop in the ocean, I guess, to him. But then at the same time, it's also, if you're looking for that monetary payout, maybe it was a good reason to let him get fight. And then your payout's even bigger, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. If you kind of look at it like that, I mean, that makes sense. But so, yeah, there's no criminal charges, I believe. There's no criminal charges as of today, November 3rd, 2025. There's just the civil lawsuit that was filed, by the ex-girlfriend at the end of last month. I mean, it didn't really seem either too like Davis wasn't really, I don't know, maybe leading up to the fight week and, these last 2 weeks, maybe it would have changed, but Davis didn't really seem like he was like, I know they had like the kickoff press conference and all that, but like Davis didn't really seem like he was very into it. Like it didn't really seem like he was like, he really like, I think he treated like this as a joke, like, which is, I mean, I get it. He's a pro fighter, but Jake Paul has been fighting, like, I don't know. I just, like I said, like going back to the pulse that we have on casual boxing fans in our worlds, nobody was asking about it. So, I mean, I don't know. I didn't feel like and he was on Netflix. I mean, people would have watched it, obviously. Like, oh, what's going on in this boxing fight? Oh, Jake Paul. But I don't know how it would have. I don't think it would have performed as well as they thought. But I don't think that. And you tell me what you think. I don't think Netflix is paying based on subscriptions, like a pay-per-view model, right?
No, it's kind of funny to see how they are, because some of the amounts of money they've paid for some of the fights, you wonder, like, are they getting that many extra subscriptions that are going to stay? That's going to make it worthwhile for them. But I mean, the business model they have so far has been obviously amazing, hasn't it? It's probably the most popular, TV movie app in the world. So,
right.
The perfect stand-in, I think, would have been Ryan Garcia.
Yeah. I think in terms of a replacement, yes, but I still don't think he would do it, because Ryan Garcia's personality and attitude, I think, would be like, no, I'm not going to jump in as a late replacement. Like, I'm a star too. I want to have a kickoff press conference and I want to be approached and I want to do it like in LA or something. Like, I mean, in relation to Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia, remember all the big fuss that Ryan Garcia threw to try to get the Tank Davis fight? That was like his first huge payday. Like, he was getting paid decently before that. But what was his highest payday before Tank Davis? Maybe $1 million? Maybe?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe. And I'm even saying that like with a hard maybe, because like it could have been like in the hundreds of thousands.
Like, I'm trying to think who the big names was he fought just before that. You got like,
because remember when he made the big fuss and forced Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy's hand to kind of restructure his contract, and then they had a press conference and a media day at the Golden Boy offices in downtown Los Angeles, and then they had said like, oh, this is a record for it's the most lucrative or best prospect or best prospect contract, most lucrative contract for a prospect, or whatever kind of fighter they could label them as at that time. They said like, oh, they were pretty much saying this is the highest paid prospect contract we've ever done in boxing. And then the potential of the Tank Davis fight subsequently came in the near future, after Ryan Garcia's popularity started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And he started posting online about it, and he essentially forced Golden Boy's hand to make the fight with Davis. And Ryan Garcia was paid very handsomely. I'm sure if you wanted to measure mathematically in terms of measurements of percentages, he got a huge raise in that payday in his purse. I don't think Ryan would take a last minute replacement for a Jake Paul in this fight. You think so?
No, I think you're probably right. Like maybe rescheduling it and doing like you said, like he gets his own poster, he gets his own date, he gets to choose the venue, he gets his own kickoff press conference and stuff like that. Yeah, I can see him wanting more of that. And they've already had like a little bit of online beef, but it's like you've got to, like if you were him, do you want the Mario Barrios fight for the WBC? Which I would imagine would pay significantly less, or do you want the Jake Paul?
But he would get a world title for the first time in his life, and I think he could. And I think he could possibly win that fight.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think he has a very good chance of actually getting a WBC title and proving me wrong. I didn't think that he would have picked up a world title, but then at the same time, he seems like a little bit crazy, and I think he probably needs to earn as much money as he can because I don't know how financially wise he is with, at the minute, being kind of young and immature. But he's had some unbelievable paydays already so far. So,
yeah. I mean, I think it ended up working out for him, at least financially. You know, I'm telling you, going back to when he created that whole firestorm and tornado of getting the Tank Davis fight for the first time, a couple of years ago.
And then you look at these three biggest paydays I've got to be Tank Davis, Rolly, and then the Devin Haney fight.
Right. I mean, I think Jake Paul's going to try his hardest to try to find an opponent. But is he going to be able to find an opponent that's going to draw some type of interest to sell out or draw a decent crowd at that arena?
Because I know that, and obviously this is more for the British fans, and I don't think it would resonate at all over here. Like someone like a Carl Froch or a Tony Bellew.
No, I mean for us, we know who that is, but the names wouldn't sell over here.
No, I don't think it would. Like if he was going to move it to the UK,
that's different.
It would sell over there. I'm trying to think of people around that weight that who we could put in with that say, because everybody fights, they're normally a big name in boxing, MMA, something like that would cause, like a big numbers. That's what he needs, right? He's going to need Netflix. He needs to draw millions. And nothing really jumps out right now.
I don't know. I think that I'm going to give it a percentage chance where I think it doesn't happen. I think there's like a 70% chance that they just drop it because they can't find a viable, decently named opponent to share the billing with and to draw fans in an arena. I think there's a 70% chance that happens and they just drop it and they say, you know what, we're going to postpone his return until first quarter of next year. I mean, it's the holiday season. It's November, December over here in the United States. I mean, in a lot of places globally, but in the United States, we've seen it. Like, there's not a lot of fighters that like to fight during the holiday season.
No.
He's going to have to raise the offer in terms of, if he really wants a decent name, he's going to, and I'm sure these people he's approaching, they're just like, well, I'll do it, but I won't do it for that. So you got to go higher. And they're talking about it and deciding what. I think 70% chance there's no event by the end of the year. Is that too much? What do you think? What would you choose?
No, I can see it because it's kind of rushly put together. And, if they're going to do it December, that doesn't give whoever they pick that long for a fight, to be in camp, to sell it, to do this, to do that. And then, like you said, like you don't normally get a lot of fights around Christmas time because, people are concentrating on Christmas time, and you've got like you're going up against NFL games, which are on those holiday weekends and have been for years, and that's just kind of like the American pastime. You stay with your family over Christmas, you put the game on, stuff like that. So yeah, I can see it getting pushed back, but then maybe Jake's put that much money into it. He's like, you know what, I'm gonna fight somebody, whether it's Darren Till. But yeah, again, he's more of a British name, even though he was in the UFC, because he's kind of gone into that misfits type of thing. KSI, they obviously fought those, time after time. They spoke about those fighting, and then maybe even he fights his brother, gets in there with Logan.
Huh. You know what's crazy? Is that actually, I don't think there's a significant chance that his brother and him fight each other, at least as a replacement like this. But there's a bigger chance than I think people think. Like, there's a chance there. Because it's his brother. He's like, oh, let me help my brother save it. The only obstacle would be that the WWE has something in his contract that says, hey, like, we have to be consulted and approve if you do something physical outside of our employment, I guess. I would look at it very in a skeptic manner, because if, let's just say that happens, Logan Paul versus Jake Paul, December something as a replacement, that would sell. People would tune in because they're both superstars in terms of popularity. But I would be skeptical because I'm just like, okay, obviously he works for WWE. He obviously consulted with them. They wouldn't let him do that if he was really actually going to fight. So I'm sure he told them, like, hey, look, like, it's me and my brother have already talked. Like, we're just going to put on a show and make it look like everything is real, but it's not. They're like, okay, well, we'll give you a shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, they're both on Netflix, so if they let them borrow Logan from the WWE, it's going to be on the fight. It's going to be on the same channel.
Right.
Here's two names for you that I just popped into my head, and we were going to talk about them fighting each other: Mayweather or Pacquiao against Jake Paul.
As a replacement?
Like either in December or if they knock it back to the start of next year.
No. Yeah, I mean, obviously those are names. Anybody's a name right now, but those guys are definitely, if you want to compare all the names that we already mentioned, and because like, oh, they wouldn't do it because they're like, oh no, I'm not going to come in as a last minute replacement. I want my own event. And then with a kickoff press conference, Mayweather and Pacquiao are at the top of that list in terms of like
next. Like if they, like you said, if they knock it back to,
if they postpone it. Oh, okay. Yeah. I could see that. I mean, Mayweather would have a little bit more of a story because he fought his brother.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna avenge my brother or something. Like, yeah. And
Pacquiao just sells. He's got the.
Yeah, I could see Jake Paul. Like I said, if he completely postpones it or cancels the rest of the event, like, hey, Jake Paul's not going to return to the first quarter of next year or by next summer, he'll try to do like a in-between fight in the first quarter of next year, and then in summer, he'll try to do a big event. And I could see him approaching Mayweather or Pacquiao, be like, hey, let's do an event on Netflix.
Yeah. They're looking for paydays, aren't they? Because there's coming back to fight each other.
This is the nature of the world we're living in boxing now, right? Is that I think that Netflix is the new like HBO. Like in terms of, okay, when I get on Netflix, like I made it. That's the payday, that's the eyeballs. HBO pay-per-view or what have you. But I think a lot of these fighters, or at least the ones with some type of profile, that bring casual fan eyeballs realize, like, okay, Netflix isn't going to buy in unless we can prove to them that we'll bring eyeballs. You can't go to Netflix and be like, hey, can we have Terrence Crawford versus, you know, I don't know. Can we have Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence rematch? I don't even think that Netflix would go for that. You know, it has to be high profile names. Like, you know, Netflix isn't in the business of putting on like actual fights. Essentially, we got lucky with Crawford Canelo, but they're in the process of hey, we want events. And if they happen to be a fight, if the fight is an event, we'll take it. But we want an event first that's going to be proven to draw some eyeballs. You know? Yeah. I mean, I don't. What do you put a percentage chance? 70? You agree with me, or you think lower than that? Or higher? That he returns with an event by the end of this year. They did say in that press release, but who knows?
Yeah, like 60%, 70% chance max that he returns, but it'll be. I don't know whether I don't know, because it's going to be quickly put together unless they already had somebody in mind as a backup. You know, like they do sometimes. They'll have like somebody on a card, or they'll have somebody in mind about, you know, standing in, especially when you know, Gervonta's kind of a bit of a wild guy. Isn't this the second time it's happened to him?
I think so. I think
it was the second time he had to cancel a fight.
Well, obviously we'll see. We'll see what happens in the next couple of days, next couple of weeks. But moving on to Joshua Buatisi. Gets a majority decision win this past weekend over Zach Parker by scores of 95-95 and 96-94 twice. This was for the WBA International Light Heavyweight title. And this happened at the Co-op Live Arena in Manchester on DAZN. You texted me about this as soon as it was over, essentially. So I'm going to let you take the floor on this one. What do you think? What happened? Describe what happened to our listeners who didn't catch up on it.
The scorecards were just amazing, you know. I would probably call Buatisi the home fighter. Parker, it was more in the away corner, and he outboxed him. It just looked like Buatisi's legs just weren't there anymore. Couldn't catch him, couldn't cut him off. It wasn't the greatest fight to watch, but I think everybody, even the people on the TV, the commentators, the fans, everybody had Parker winning pretty convincingly, but the judges had other ideas. 96-94 twice, and then the 95-95. Madness where they got that from. But they did it on another card in the same arena. You know, Liam Cameron, Troy Jones fight, the same thing. They put it to Liam Cameron, who was essentially the home fighter, and Troy Jones had to go away with a defeat, and it's the same thing for Parker. If you look to the interview afterwards, he was talking about, you know, he's having another child, and, you know, the amount of money that these fighters drop when they lose, it's significant. You know, he's probably gone from, you know, 6-figure fights, you know, maybe back down to 5, where, you know, in the UFC, you have a contract and the money stays the same. It's not like that in boxing. You know, so his money's going to drop down again after losing a fight. Whereas Buatisi just looked shocked afterwards. You know, you could see in the fight when the last round had finished, Parker looked like he'd won and Buatisi looked like a defeated man. So I think even deep down, I think he thought the same thing. So that's the problem. I think sometimes where maybe the judges consciously or unconsciously, it's a tight round, there wasn't much going on, they just side with the home fighter because maybe they feel they should, because the home fighter, the A-side fighter, is normally the favorite. But yeah, it's just crazy, man. You know, Parker looked like he was going to cry. You know, it didn't look like he didn't really want to do the interviews afterwards because, he's going to start all over again and try to build back up. And Buatsi's definitely not going to turn around and be like, hey, you want a rematch? You just box my ears off.
And Parker, at least late in the fight, had some good body work, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's a good fighter to watch stylistically, but I think he could tell in that fight that Buatsi wanted to stay up close, and he was just like, no. And then he even said afterwards, like, I could just tell that his legs weren't there anymore, compared to earlier in his career. And Parker just boxed rings around him, essentially. Wasn't great to watch, but it was effective. But for some reason, the judges didn't see it that way.
What would you have scored it? We had 95-95 and 96-94.
I thought it was about 98-92.
Really? That wide?
Yeah, I didn't think it was that close, really. I think, but, people who've listened to us for a while, I think Buatsi's massively overrated, and I think that kind of showed it. What's he done in his career? Like, he's not a prospect anymore. He's at the Olympics, came out with a huge fanfare, and then obviously just having been on the home side all the time, Matchroom, and, until he went over to Boxer, they were just constantly telling you how good he was. But who's he beat? He's never done anything.
And the crowd booed, too, when they announced the decision, right?
Rightly so. I think everybody saw it. But it's the same thing, Danny, we'll complain about it for a week or two, and then once the next cards come out next week, we just move on, and nothing ever happens, unfortunately.
Then didn't they also say, or wasn't there talk of Buatsi trying to get Bivol as a fight too after this?
Bivol, there was talk also of was it this month or next month, the Benavidez against Anthony Yarde fight. I think that could be. I mean, if Benavidez wins, I'm sure he's probably still going to shout for like maybe the Canelo fight, because that's the biggest payday for him. And I think we both probably think Benavidez will be too big, too strong for someone like Anthony Yarde. Yeah,
that's what I think on that. Obviously, we'll touch on that as it gets closer. But is there a chance of a Buatsi-Parker rematch?
No, I think if you're...
You think he runs away? He's like, hey, I knew this was tough, so it's one of those like, okay, I got the win. I'll never turn back. Like, oh, why do I need to go back? I beat him.
I think so. I think, in my opinion, he lost pretty easily. And I think deep down inside, I think Buatsi knows that. And if I was him, you would probably just run off. He should, if he's going to be like a man about it. And I think he wants to right the wrong. But at the same time, if you're thinking about how it's going to hit you in the pocket, and there's talk of him maybe getting a world title fight, even though he lost the fight before this to Callum Smith.
Right.
As we're probably going to talk about soon, Ryan Garcia might be getting a title fight against Mario Barrios off a loss to Rolando Romero. So the boxing world again. If I was him, I would probably run away, be like, hey, you know what? Like, you win some, you lose some, and I'm going to take this and run away with it. So,
no, I get it. But I think if he gets a Benavidez or Bivol, I think he gets destroyed.
100%, yeah.
I mean, he might get a decent payday, but which financially goes back to the financial security thing. I get it, but I think Bivol and Benavidez are just levels above him, especially.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just one of those like, oh, if I can get to that top and get a payday there, then I'm good.
Because if you look at him, like, there's a lot of them, Buatsi and Anthony Yarde probably being the major two. Is if you look at all of the light heavyweights that we've had in the UK over the last few years, they've never fought each other. They've always selected careful fights, especially Anthony Yarde, against unknown people who have had these high rankings. And then Anthony Yarde's, this is going to be his third world title shot.
Yeah, it is. That's right.
And if you look at outside of, who did he fight? Was it Kovalev? Was it Bivol or Beterbiev? And then Benavidez? Like, he's fought nobody.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's just baffling how he's managed to get there.
I mean, I feel like we've said that exact statement several times over the years. It's like,
it's just carefully selected, high-ranking people in the WBO. He's a Frank Warren fighter, and then boom, title shot. Gets beat, comes back, fights a few more unknowns.
Are you still really surprised? I mean, are we really surprised? Like, we say this all, like, we could go back in all the hundreds of episodes that we've done, and I guarantee you, we've talked about situations such as this at different times, different points in times, and it's just like, well, we know what happens, but the surprise factor is still always there. We're like, man, I think we're just more surprised, and you tell me if I'm right on this. Are we more surprised that it just still keeps happening?
It's, how can I put it? Because it's going to sound wrong. When Ryan Garcia, when he's so popular like he is, you don't agree with it, but you understand it. But I don't feel that Anthony Yard is that popular and sells that many tickets and pay-per-views. That baffles me. Maybe he does, but I don't think he's that well known in the US. Whereas Ryan Garcia, you can be like, I get it. He's super popular on Instagram and social media, and he puts bums in seats, and he sells pay-per-views. You're like, okay, I can kind of understand why he's got the world title shot. Do I agree with it? Absolutely not. It should be earned. But put your business hat on. You can be like, okay, I can see why they did it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, this is deja vu with these conversations.
Yeah.
We run into this every time, almost weekly, at least monthly for sure. But it happens. I mean, this segue into like this next topic, we touched on him earlier, but Mayweather and Pacquiao are talking about, or at least rumored to run it back again, but this time in an exhibition type next year. And I think Pacquiao has confirmed that there's been ongoing or some type of contact between both camps. So, I mean, do we see that fight? Talk about financial. Like, that fight would still make a lot of money too. 10 years later, 11 years later, essentially.
Yeah. I think it's the typical Floyd Mayweather thing where, like, he kind of releases it, tests the water, like, what sort of reaction is this going to get on social media? And then if it gets a huge reaction, good reaction, then okay, let's make it.
Right.
I just don't know. Like, normally I would say yes, like, it'll sell, this will happen, but they're so old now. Like, it was, what, 10 years ago, the first one?
2015. Yeah.
But then we're all a sucker for, those old school fights. Like, look at Jake Paul, Mike Tyson.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the nostalgia 11 years ago, if they fight in 2026, that fight was 11 years ago, and they had 4.5 million pay-per-view buys. And that's not counting how many eyeballs were watching each of those TVs. There was probably over 10 million eyeballs watching that within those 4.5 million pay-per-view buys. People have parties and, so the nostalgia factor and the curiosity factor and the fact or the notion that their first attempt will be to get this on Netflix, people will watch it. They'll watch it. I mean, we could say whatever we want, but we'll watch it.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
I mean, we're in the era of exhibitions now.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with all these in the last several years, all these networks and broadcasters exiting the sport because the sport is just, I mean, that's the truth. Like, these broadcasters exit the sport in terms of broadcasting these fights along promoters and partnering with promoters because it's not financially viable for them. I mean, that's the truth. Like, And unfortunately for fans like us, media like us, like that's just, it reduces the access and it reduces the footprint of the sport.
It's crazy that those names outsell the current ones still.
Yeah. I mean, Canelo is literally the last star.
Yeah.
He is. He's the last star. There is nobody behind him. And people can say, oh, no, Crawford's there. Crawford's older than him. Crawford's not going to give you all the fights like that you think, oh, he's not going to fight like Boots Ennis and stuff like that. Like, I don't expect that to happen. And I don't blame Crawford. I think Crawford has put in his time. There's nobody behind Canelo. And like you said, so it makes these other guys who have already had their cemented legacies, Mayweather, Pacquiao, Jake Paul coming in from the outside, but kind of entering boxing, so bringing his audience in, and then bringing in Mike Tyson, who, people, the nostalgia factor, the curiosity factor. Oh my God, I was a big Mike Tyson fan 35 years ago. 30 years ago, or I mean, there's nobody behind Canelo as a star. So that's why these exhibition fights and these events, in quotation marks, are panning out. There's no boxing on ESPN anymore. There's no boxing on, Fox Sports and all that. DAZN is your only player.
Yep. Still waiting to hear where Top Rank's supposed to be falling, but
yeah. I mean,
BBC has done what, 1 or 2 shows this entire year?
Right. I mean, this is the era of exhibitions, man. The era of events. I mean, we had events, obviously, throughout the sport of boxing. Mayweather Pacquiao was also a fight, even though people weren't as satisfied with it. It was a fight, but it was an event. Canelo Triple G, fight and event. So Canelo Chavez Jr. right before the first Triple G fight. That was huge. That was a huge fight. Like a lot of Latinos and Mexican Americans and all that, tuned in for that fight. That fight did over 1 million buys.
Yeah, which is rare.
Yeah. Rare. And we know, covering the sport, how rare that is. That's a difficult task to hit. Yeah, I mean, I give the Mayweather Pacquiao event next year 75% that it happens.
Oh, wow.
I do.
I'll go 50-50.
50-50? I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I think 75% that it happens. Like I said, like we just talked about, it's the era of exhibitions. Boxing is nowhere, so but people still like to see fighters fight. And Zuffa boxing and that whole situation, they're still getting off the ground barely. Like they're in the infant stages at Zuffa boxing. So I mean, there's a chance that Mayweather approaches Dana White and Zuffa. Him and Pacquiao, and they're like, hey, put on the event for us with Netflix.
I was just about to say that. I wonder where that would fall if that did. Because, before you'd have like Showtime, PBC, but their deal with Amazon is not looking great. So I don't see DAZN picking up something like that. So yeah, Netflix maybe would be the only.
Oh yeah, that's going to be their first. Like, hey, let's go to Netflix.
How about Jake Paul against Roy Jones Jr.?
I feel like that's been explored. I feel like it has.
I'm trying to think of someone who's a similar size. Because remember he fought.
But I don't think. I don't. It's maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think Netflix would be interested in that.
I don't think Jones is a big enough name now.
Yes.
unfortunately, as much as I love him.
Yeah, I don't think they'd be interested in that.
What do you think? What do you think? This is going to sound so random, but we're talking about exhibitions. And Pacquiao is probably looking for a payday because he's been out of the ring for a while, apart from the Barrios fight. Pacquiao exhibition Inoue in Asia.
I don't think that's totally impossible.
Imagine the numbers it would do out there.
But see, I don't see Inoue going the exhibition route anytime soon, because I think Inoue looks at himself as a very serious fighter, and he still has a ton of respect for the sport. Where he's like, no, he's like, I'm a real fighter right now. Like, I'm, if he was older and retired or whatever, like, maybe, but I think right now, I think Inoue would probably decline that. Because he's a superstar over there. He is. I mean, Japanese athletes they're taking over, man.
Yeah.
We talk. Out here in LA, Dodgers just won the back-to-back World Series, and they have 3 of the biggest Japanese athletes on their team.
MVP.
And, what?
Got MVP, right?
Yeah. So, and not just 3 of the biggest Japanese athletes on their team, but one of them is arguably the most popular athlete in the world, in Shohei Ohtani. And then you had the other guy, Yamamoto, the pitcher. He was just named MVP. And then they got the younger guy, Sasaki. Like, all these 3 guys were all like the best players in Japan. Like, Japan has a professional league, like their own Major League Baseball. And then they played over there, and then they come over here to the United States, and they're all huge stars, like global. Because Japan follows them, the United States follows them. And Inoue is a rock star over there in Japan. So if these guys on the Los Angeles Dodgers go back to Japan, they're rock stars. So I don't think Inoue would, as of right now, I don't think he would do it. I don't think he would take that offer against a Pacquiao. In the future, yes. But I think right now he'd be like, no, I'm still like, what did Triple G used to say? Respect box. That's what I think. But going back to what we said, the era of exhibitions and events. That's what it is, right?
Sadly, because like you said, I think we spoke about this before, is there's nobody anywhere near as popular as Canelo. Like, there's nobody that you're like, okay, he's the next big thing. He's the next pay-per-view star that's going to take over the Mexican holidays. Yeah. Independence Day, Cinco de Mayo, like, your De La Hoya, Mayweather, then Canelo. Now, nobody, unfortunately.
Right. Well, before we end it, obviously there was some other news that happened this week. Victor Conte, the founder of the BALCO lab, and later an anti-doping advocate in boxing, passed away this week at the age of 75 due to cancer that I don't think a lot of people knew about, right? It wasn't public, or he didn't really post about it, but, obviously the people like to be private, which is fine. Obviously he had his situation where he went to prison. So he had a controversial past, a tainted past. What was it? What did they call it? The BALCO scandal in sports doping and all that. So I believe there's a federal raid here in the United States in the early 2000s that exposed his operation as like a factory for performance enhancing drugs, PEDs, and distribution and, steroids and all that. So, and that was, for going back to the baseball thing, a big baseball player over here in history was Barry Bonds, who's still not in the Hall of Fame, by the way, because of that shadow that follows him like that. So Victor Conte had pleaded guilty to, I believe, steroids distribution, conspiracy, and money laundering. And did, I believe, a couple months in prison and then home arrest and all that. So, and I believe Netflix, talking about Netflix, had a documentary, right?
Yeah, so the documentary is Untold, Hall of Shame. It's part of the Netflix original documentary series Untold, where they look at different people from Johnny Manziel to Jake Paul to Victor Conte, which is it is a very interesting episode. Obviously,
regardless if you agree or not, like, you should watch it. It's very interesting.
Goes into him working with, athletes like Marion Jones, Tim Montgomery, and allegedly, like you said, Barry Bonds.
Right. So after he got out of prison and, after that in the mid-2000s, he tried to rehab his image. He launched SNAC, SNAC, and which is an acronym for Scientific Nutrition for Advanced Conditioning. And he pivoted to supplements like zinc magnesium formula called Zima. And, he tried to be essentially he was trying to do the opposite of what he was found guilty for, what he pleaded guilty for. He was trying to be an advocate for anti-doping and all that. And, so he essentially went from a prominent figure in that situation to, I know he testified, I believe, in congressional hearings. And he had, I think, consulting with WADA, World Anti-Doping Association. It was essentially he was trying to rehab also his image. But I think it worked, right? I mean, regardless of what people think about the guy, regardless, he had prominent names in the year subsequent to him pleading guilty to that situation in the early 2000s and serving time. He had prominent names, for example, as most recently as Terrence Crawford, associated with SNAC. Yep. So, I mean, and I'm sure he made some decent money on those SNAC products, right?
No, 100%. Like you said, I think he's obviously always going to be tarred with that brush due to what he did. But yeah, I mean, he had like Devin Haney and Terrence Crawford, like you said, in camp for Terrence Crawford, the biggest ever fight when he, turned the tables and defeated Canelo Alvarez.
Right. So, I think that whether you agree with his past life or earlier life or not, I think that objectively he was successful in rehabbing his image in a bigger way than people thought. Because, I mean, I'm sure that around that time, if you would have asked a lot of people, like, oh, what is he going to do in the future? Like, in 20 years or 15 years, like, he's going to be right back at it, but he's going to be an advocate, like, for, hey, don't, I was in this, I know what to look for. Now everything's clean, but I've seen this before. I mean, we would see him tweet, right? Like, we would see him tweet in regards to findings, drug testing and all that in boxing. We would see him tweet about it and say, no, this is, like, he would give his opinion. He'd be like, he would say, like, hey, like, who would know better than me? I was in it. So, obviously he had his detractors and there was obviously his supporters, but I think you have to recognize, regardless, that he did rehab his image from a PR perspective in a significant way. Right?
No, 100%. Yeah, he managed to, I think for the most, kind of turn it around and was still working in the sport, had a very successful company, and he held his hands up to his transgressions before, right? And I think we're all bright enough to understand it's still going on. People still using it, still testing positive. Sometimes even the sanctioning bodies are the ones that kind of like ignore it and allow them to fight. We've seen that recently with people like Conor Ben, Oscar Valdez tested positive, and they let him fight that weekend. So it's still going on.
Oh yeah, big time. But I mean, that's the nature of the game, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, he was 75 years old, and he was still involved. He was still involved in athletic performance. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, what rest in peace, Victor Conte, or whatever you might think of him. He had prominent fighters in the boxing world who were on his side. As I mentioned, Terrence Crawford was a supporter. So he was involved. But one more thing that I want to bounce off of you just to get your quick reaction before we sign off here. Rick Glazer, he's been on the show before, right? Some people have been upset because we've had Rick Glazer on. He announced, or he posted, that his wife is now a boxing advisor and has signed her first fighter. What do you think about that? That came out of left field. I don't know I didn't expect that. That's news to me.
Keeping it in the family, I guess, using his contacts to help her get into the business, I assume. I know that obviously he's a bit of a matchmaker himself and does a lot of things in the corporate side of boxing. So, yeah, good for him, good for her. It'd be interesting to see how that transpired.
Get him back.
I wonder what she did for work before that. I wonder what her career is that she decided to just do that on the side. It's interesting.
Hey, I think that opens the door to asking her for an interview.
There we go. Yeah.
Right? I think the listeners would like that because, Rick Glazer's not shy about giving an interview. He's been on the show, I believe, twice with us in the past. It's been a while since he's been on. But now that his wife is involved in boxing, I think it's worth a shot, right? Let's ask her and then see if we can get an interview, get her on the last round. I think it's worth a shot.
Who is it that blocked us when Rick came on? That manager guy?
I think there was a couple people.
From PBC?
Leonard Ellerby.
That's him.
Yeah. He had blocked us right after we had Rick Glazer on. Yeah.
Because they were going at each other. And
Yeah, because that was around the time when they were both, going at each other on Twitter. And then we had Glazer on around that timeline. And then we were blocked. So
Childish.
That's the nature of the game, right? That's the nature of the game. But on that note, I think that's a good note to cross the finish line here. Before we completely sign off, once again, guys, we appreciate you guys listening. Whether you've been listening since the beginning of our run in 2018 or this is your first time listening to an episode, we definitely appreciate it and hope you continue to listen to each and every episode that we produce. Mike, before we sign off, go ahead and let them know where they can find us and follow us.
At The Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter.
And hopefully we're back next week. We've been trying to obviously give you guys more consistent episodes. Schedules are a little bit different, but I think we found a little bit of a groove. So I think we're going to give you more consistent episodes, hopefully weekly again, get back in that groove. But once again, for my co-host, Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.